Hello, we are looking at problem 2 on page 492 of your Geometry Part 2 textbook. This is lesson 8.1. This particular problem here is getting us to find the length of a missing side using the Pythagorean theorem. Now, if you'll remember, in basic concept, the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, the problem with learning it just saying a squared plus b squared equals c squared is that a, b, and c are different in different pictures. So what you have to remember is the a squared and the b squared represent the legs of a right triangle, and c always represents the hypotenuse of the right triangle. So think of it more as leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. So when we look at the picture over there at the right, you can see that the two legs are 8 and x. One of the legs is what we don't know. The hypotenuse is 20, which is why there's a 20 there. Now, 8 squared, of course, is 64. X squared stays x squared, and 20 squared turns into 400. If I were to subtract the 64 over from the 400, that's where I end up with a 336. Now, when we take the square root of 336, because they want us to leave our answers in simplest radical form, that means don't make it a decimal. It means you've got to simplify it using radicals. So when I think of 336, and sometimes you have to just play around with this to be able to figure this out, but you look for the largest perfect square number that will go into 336. So think of some of your perfect square numbers like 9 or 16 or 25 or 36 or 49 or 64, some of those. Now, on this particular one, they found out that it factored into 16 times 21. Now, the square root of 16 comes out of the radical as a 4, and the 21, which is not a perfect square number, has to remain under the radical. So in simplified form, you end up with 4 radical 21. Okay. Now, let's do the same thing for the got it here. There is a right triangle here that I want to draw just so that we can have a visual, just like we had before. It said on this that the hypotenuse is meant to be 12 and that one of the legs is 6. Now, it really probably doesn't matter when you're sketching, but I'm going to put the 6 here and the x here just like it was in the problem. And then I'm going to use this. Remember, it is leg squared, which is x squared, plus the other leg squared, which is going to be 6 squared, ends up being the hypotenuse squared, which is 12 squared. Okay? So x squared plus 6 squared equals 12 squared simplifies into x plus 36 equals 144. If I then subtract the 36 over, I'm going to get that x squared equals 108. Now, again, if I'm trying to simplify this, because ultimately we're taking the square root of that, I know that 108, and again, I had to play around with this as well, but 108 turns into 36 times 3. Now, because we're taking the square root of that here, then the square root of 36 is going to come out as a 6, and the 3 is going to have to still remain under the radical. So we end up with x equals 6 square roots of 3. I hope this helped.